Discover Hunter is a powerful new archetype that's been introduced in the Great Beyond. This deck comprises of using two of the major new cards in addition to all of the other Discover cards that are used by previously by Hunter. So X Arch Naielle is definitely the strongest card in this deck. You always want to make sure that you're trying to mulligan for it because it's a 3 mana 3/4 minion that changes your hero power to a discover. And when you're able to discover, it means that you can choose any of your cards and you can get through your deck a lot quicker. This provides Hunter some targeted draw, which is very powerful. In addition, this deck also uses the 1 mana minion that is able to duplicate any of your discovered cards. So if you discover a card such as an eruption, you're able to get one that's played immediately and also one that goes into your hand. Or if you discover a spell such as Alien Encounters, it means that you can use it over and over. In this deck, you want to be mulliganing for a few cards. You want to mulligan for tracking, Birdwatching. You also want to mulligan sometimes for Glacial Shard, depending on what you're playing against. And you always want to be making sure you're mulliganing for X Arch Naielle. That's definitely the priority card to be having in this matchup. If you can also mulligan for the Titan Forge traps. Those are also quite useful for boosting up your amount of mulligans that you can do, while also powering up your Alien Encounters. Alien Encounters is definitely another strong card that's played in this deck. It has a very similar way it's played to the old Druid spell that was around, which lets you summon 1/5 taunts for every minion that's on your board. This one, when you discover a card, it reduces its cost down by 1, which then allows you to be able to use it over and over. And when you use the Tide Pool minions as well to discover it in addition with your rangers, you're able to get multiple Alien Encounters up in the same turn. So it provides a lot of mana cheating and also a lot of extra power. This list uses Insidious as well. So Insidious is quite a powerful card that's used by a lot of decks at the moment. It for every turn that it's on the field, it powers up the eruptions that it places in your deck as well. So it's very powerful to be having just sitting on the board while getting more and more eruptions that happen. What you'll see in this gameplay footage is I got the eruption quite early because I know that I'm going to be playing against the Warlock build that's the Infinite Warlock build, Wheel Warlock or Armor Gain Warlock. So it's important that I'm trying to get as much tempo down into the field as possible, which is the reason why I've got that I'm trying to get the Alien Encounters to stick, I'm trying to get the Incendious to stick, trying to get the Ziliacs to stick to try and burst them down before they get set up. Because ultimately, if they get set up, I'm in a very difficult situation to be playing against it. So at the moment, my eruptions have +2, so they're now dealing 3 damage from my deck. So it's very powerful to be having. Unfortunately, I already drew 2 of them. So that's a little bit of a sad issue to go with that, but it is what it is for it. You'll notice that they're also clearing out my Incendious because they don't want to be keeping it getting buffed, because every turn that it gets buffed, it becomes more and more powerful. So this turn I've used the tracking. So tracking obviously is very powerful to be having. I am looking for my Ranger because I want to be trying to get that out as quickly as possible. I end up choosing here the Vigilant because that also can be used to get your extra Ranger out. I then play down Tidepool Hunter to get myself another Alien Encounters. The Alien Encounters, once again, is very powerful to be having on the board to keep minions going down and keep establishing the tempo. In addition, it's also very powerful using Parrot Sanctuary because it allows your battle cries to become 1 cheaper. This then can be used to boost or increase the amount of minions you can place onto your board. So they've now got their defense crystal, which is a bit of a problem for me. It's not something that I really ideally want to be facing. So I use tracking here to try and get my scout. I get the scout out, and then I play it down. And now I'm just trying to get some extra value because I need to be trying to generate things. I think about here for the Hellfire, but ultimately it wouldn't be very useful. So I end up deciding to get the Demotic Studies. I use the second of my Parrot Sanctuary, I use it again, and then I end up choosing the Brute because I want to be trying to get a minion down that can try and survive against the board that's there, and also to try and apply some tempo to the opponent. I do take out the taunt minion because if they end up using reverberations on it, I am in a little bit of trouble because it not only gives them extra armor to be dealing with, but it also increases the ability of their starship. So they end up playing another of their hunters down, and since they've got the Buccaneer on the field as well, it means that they're getting an extra reborn through it, and they get to use that minion twice and get a bigger board through it. So it's important in this situation that I am getting rid of their Buccaneer, because if they play it down, it is a problem card for me to be trying to deal with. They end up drawing some more cards as well using their significant draw that's in their deck, and then they use a table flip to take out a few of my minions. So this turn, I'm going to be playing down my my minion to get back my scout. I then use the scout, and I'm going to use it again to get another scout. And I'm trying right now to get some Ceaseless Expanse or Grifter or any of those value cards that can really help support me. So I've got 2 of the scouts on the field now, which means that whatever spell I choose, I can get an extra 2 copies of it. So I grab the fire, the damage one, because I'm gonna have to try and burst this opponent down since they've established so much armor using their starship. You'll notice that it just jumped forward. I skipped because they didn't end up doing anything that entire turn for that 60 seconds or whatever it was. And now they've got the Exodar played down, they've used Ceaseless Expanse, and then they've gained extra armor. So it is a little bit of a scary situation for me to be in. This turn I play down my Brute. I then use my Grifter, and I'm hoping for take control of enemy minions, but I end up only getting the spell damage one. So now I'm up to 24 damage in hand, which is not nearly enough at the moment, especially to be dealing with that board that they have there. I grab, in this situation, the Ceaseless Expanse of my own, because I'm going to need to take out the opponent. So I definitely didn't play that correctly in terms of how that should have been played. I should have done all my draw before playing down the Brute, because I ended up just essentially wasting that Brute onto the field. They play down their Titan now, and then they're going to be using the I believe they end up using the Taunt, because with the Taunt, it means that even though I can very easily clear the 6-12, they can have the Taunt going into every single minion for the rest of the game, which is very powerful and very difficult for me to deal with. So they end up using that ability on their Titan, and then I believe they end up just passing over their turn. Oh no, they freeze my Ceaseless Expanse, then pass. This is a little bit challenging of a situation to be in, because I do want to try and deal with what's there, but I also want to make sure that I'm dealing with the enemy the best as possible. I end up using my ETC to get the Fizzle, because the Fizzle is the only way that I'm really going to be able to deal enough damage to this opponent really quickly. And I'm also hoping to be able to use my scout my last scout in addition to my Fizzle, to get my my spells back twice, which then will be able to combo quite a lot of damage down for the opponent. Right here, I'm deciding between Freezing Trap and Bargain Bin, because if they attack with their Taunt, it doesn't really benefit me too much. Neither does Explosive Trap. So these ones aren't very useful for me to be having, because I want to be ultimately trying to get as many minions established on board, because they do have the ability to clear them really quite easily. So they end up using the Amulet of Warding onto my Ceaseless Expanse. I end up having Bargain Bin, so it gets me an extra card. And then they send all of the minions into the Nether. So something that I could have done that turn was take out the 6-12, but I did want to try and establish my board a little bit more. That probably is a little bit of a mistake, since they did end up being able to get some value down using that. Yes, because I also was trying to take control. Like, there was a few cards that I didn't draw particularly well, but I definitely didn't play that turn very well either. So I've got the bait and switch down onto the board now. I have a few options here. I end up freezing the Titan so it doesn't allow them to get the 6/6 stats down onto the board. I then use my hero power since I had a full hand. That's the reason why I played that down first. I use my Titan Forge traps, and then I use the traps. I'm trying to look here for hidden meaning to try and get more board control and rat traps. So then if they end up playing down more and more cards, it allows me to be able to deal with their board a bit better because they do have the ability quite easily to control the board using all their spells and their removal, in addition to the extra, minions they're getting through the portal. So I end up passing the turn over to them. I've got a 6/6 and a 2/1, so it's not that strong in reality. I do have bait and switch, so it allows me to be able to deal with that. Also, the previous turn, I wasn't thinking that they were going to use the use the board clear. I was thinking that they were going to use the 6/6s and then just freeze my Ceaseless Expanse, which is another reason why I didn't play it like that. They ended up using their spell just there, so now they don't have any more of the fire amulets, the damage amulets. So once again, they are going to be finishing with a relatively decent board. So I'm in a very unfavorable position here. Obviously, I do get the rat trap to come back online, and if they leave it with a minion, it means that I can get that. But they have a very wide board. They have a lot of armor. It's definitely not a fantastic situation for me to be in. Once again, Discover Hunter isn't the easiest deck to beat. Extremely slow deck like this Warlock build, and unfortunately, as you just see, I just drew into the snapshot, so I am a little bit frustrated that that's the case, but I end up using all my damage to try and burst them down, but also to then be able to get my snapshot back online, because I don't want to be wasting very much of the damage or anything like that. So I end up using all of my AoE and all my damage this turn to try and push down their health and push down the extra damage that's on the opponent's minions. So this turn I discover a minion. I already have access to kill Jaden, I believe. No, I don't have access to kill Jaden. So what I'm doing here is I'm getting the 6/6 to try and deal with the board a bit better, because I am quite concerned that they are able to, like, if they end up launching that spaceship, there's pretty much no chance that I have a way of dealing with it in reality. So I am quite concerned that if they do it, it's just going to be a no chance for me. And they have so much armor, they have a lot of the board, so it's definitely not a very fantastic situation to be in. But ultimately, they end up doing a few mistakes, which does cost them the game, which you'll be able to see very shortly. Yeah, so I'm definitely not in a fantastic situation, especially with their board being so wide, them having the big starship and all that. I end up drawing into an eruption there, which is great for me. I then play down my scout to get my next eruption. I need to be trying to deal with the board as best as possible. That then draws me into another eruption. I'm looking at their board and thinking of how I'm going to deal best with their minions in their board. So I play down my discovered minion, and then I use the eruption. I do that first because I want to be able to make sure that I can clear out the Titan. Otherwise, with the minion, otherwise I'd have to think of something different to do. He ends up freezing my minion, so I don't have the ability to use the Winfrey that I have on it. And then they use the Defile, so that does deal a bit of damage to my guy. I have another eruption that comes out of my deck, and then with the Mixologist that I am going to play down shortly, I'm hoping. Oh, I end up going for that. I end up getting the Windlord. I'd use that first because I could use Mixologist to do the 2 damage AoE, but it would mean that they would then be able to have more of a board that's there. They only have 4 cards left in their deck, and you noticed previously in their game that they did mill the Kill Jaden, which has put them at a little bit of a disadvantage. They don't have a Ceaseless Expanse anymore, so the 3/4s are all that I'm having to deal with, but I'm having to make sure that I have enough to ultimately deal with what's coming out of that. They just spend the turn just getting those minions back onto the board. I play down the Mixologist here, and right now I'm looking for AoE, but I'm also looking for some extra value. So I get the Demon, and I also get the 2 damage to all minions. I use it, and then I decide what I'm going to get with the... I look at what I get with that. I get some more value with the fire spells that ends up being drawn, and luckily I end up getting a Heat Wave, which is able to clear their board, and then I can deal some more damage to their armor. And since I have Windfree, I have quite a bit that can be done with that. So they're now down to a reasonable sort of amount of health. I still have no idea why they didn't just use the Starship on this turn, or these turns, because if they did, there wasn't really anything I had to deal with it. Like, I have the Poisonous, but they'd have so much armor that I wouldn't be able to deal with anything that's there. That 3-drop also obviously is awful to be having on my field, in my hand, because I cannot play it whatsoever. I end up trading the 6/1 into it, and that was that wasn't the best that I could be dealing with, but it did mean that I kept the Windfree online as well still. So they end up this turn using their Reverberations that's in their hand, and it gets them another of their pit bosses. It gets 2 actually, and this ends up being a little bit of a massive problem for me. So if I hadn't have drawn into that and it had been something different, it would have been definitely a lot better for me. But they essentially clear my whole board using it, which is not great. And then they have the portal still coming out with the minions. So this turn I play down the Fizzle Spotlight, because I need to be dealing with this board since I have so little amount of health. I'm down to 18. I end up choosing the Taunt because that's the thing that will be least useful for them besides from the draw cards. And then it's also the most useful for helping protect my health. I then choose the Bait and Switch to increase my the amount of health my Taunt minion has, and the Rat Trap just in case they do try to use the 3 spells in the same turn. On second thought, it probably wasn't the best choice to be using, since they only have 3 cards in their hand, it isn't likely they'd be using all 3 at the same time. So then they do end up taking another bit of damage through the fatigue. So they're taking quite a bit of fatigue at this point in time, and I'm also taking a bit too. So they use the taunt to they use their spell to get the extra taunt, and then they do have quite a wide board. So I'm down now to 5 health, which is definitely not very much. So I need to be thinking about how I can survive this next turn while also dealing with the opponent's board. I play down the Mixologist and see what I end up getting. So I make sure that I get armor since it'll help survive the fatigue damage. And then I end up choosing the dealing damage to the opponent as well. So at this point, I am in a very challenging situation. So I play down I'm just thinking of how I'm going to use my spells, because if I don't use my spells effectively, it means that they will be able to deal with my board. But if I use them to deal face, obviously I'm not in a great situation either. I end up hitting into the lifesteal minion first, so then they don't get any advantage using it. Using their lifesteal that's there. And I'm now up to 9 health, so I need to be thinking of how I'm going to deal with this board. So I'm just thinking right now whether to use my spells or whether to use my minion. I end up using the minion instead because it has the possibility of getting lifesteal with it. And what you'll notice is that I did end up getting lifesteal. So I end up trading into both of the 2 minions that are there, and I still keep my other minion that's alive. And I have my 4 extra spell damages in my hand. So once again, I'm still unsure why they didn't just launch the Starship in previous turns when they had a lot more armor and health and things, because they would have like a complete control of the board. Like, I know I had Poisonous, but they would have had so much more armor that I wouldn't have been able to deal with whatever they had. They may have been scared of my secrets, but I'm not 100% sure. In this turn, I need to be dealing as much damage as I can while applying pressure, and also I can't take any more damage from any of the minions. So I end up um, taking out the Marauder, and then I take out the other of the taunt minions there. I keep my two spells because I do want to make sure that if I need to, I can uh, attack a few times in this following turn. I don't want to use them all up in case that they do have a way to heal or anything like that. So they end up using their Starship, which is a 12/6, and then since they freeze my character, they end up taking a lot more fatigue damage. They take a bit of damage. That's an obvious misplay from them. And then I just hit twice with my two spells and then pass the turn, and then it's over for them. So ultimately, both myself and the opponent didn't had several mistakes throughout the game, but you'll notice that theirs were a lot more costly. Yeah, so this game that I'm playing against Priest, it's a lot short. It ends up being a lot shorter than the Warlock game. You do end up in this game seeing the power of Discover Hunter. So there's two different variants of Discover Hunter that are around: the aggressive version and also the non-aggressive version. You'll notice that I just kept Birdwatching. I was thinking of keeping the Parrot Sanctuary as well, just in case, but I decided against it. I ended up drawing into my one mana Discover card, which is quite strong to be doing, and then I'm just deciding whether to get the Poisonous or to get the Blood Mage to draw an extra card. I end up choosing the Blood Mage just in case, because it could also be quite useful in addition to Incendious to be able to combo some Eruptions onto the opponent's board. Because once again, I'm not 100% certain of what my opponent's playing, because there's both Zamari Priest and Reno Priest at the moment on ladder. Because they're using Birdwatching, it is quite likely that they're using that it is possible they're using the Reno Priest, since they haven't done really very much and they coined into that as well. I end up discovering my extra 1-drop to get a few more stats onto the board with the Birdwatching, and it also means that I do have a follow-up play next turn. In addition, I can use Alien Encounters as well with it. So I play down my 1-drop. It's a 3/2, so it's very powerful to be having. And I'm just deciding here which is the most useful to be having for my board. I end up just taking the Cabal Miner just because it's... Although I don't have any other of the digging spells, it means that I can... there's a few different cards that are quite useful that can be used with it. This following turn, I do have access to Ziliax, so I freeze their 3-drop. I play down my my minion to get the extra treasure, and then I just go all face. So at the moment, I'm applying a lot of pressure onto the opponent's Priest. It's only turn 4, and I do have a board of 7 minions in addition to Ziliax. Obviously, the pre-nerf Ziliax would be well and truly game over on this situation. If they had a Holy Nova, I would be in a bit of a situation, but ultimately they don't end up having one. They do end up getting rid of my aura with their Ziliax, but it's not the biggest of a concern for me because I can still deal with whatever they have, because it is such an early turn in the game. They are not really in a situation that can deal with whatever damage that I'm dealing here, because at the moment I'm dealing 14 damage on board that's just being shown, plus the hero power. So right now I am just counting up to check to make sure that I do have enough health and damage, but they end up conceding anyway. And then that's the end of that game. So Discover Hunter can go long later game, but it's definitely stronger for mid-range.